So if you're watching this video, you may be like me, and you may have wondered, is my X Pro 3 good enough for me to use for video? Or should I get another dedicated video camera? And I'm in the Fujifilm system, so I've been looking at multiple cameras that I could purchase. The X Pro 3, because of the discount it has now, and the fact that with the update, it does really well with autofocus. The XS10, which has the newest IBIS in it, a smaller IBIS, which they say is more efficient than the XT4s, and it still has a lot of the capabilities the XT3 has, but maybe not some of the features like dual card slot. And then the XH1, which is the best bang for your buck because it has IBIS, it has some pretty nice codecs, and yeah, all of this to supplement for the fact that in a lot of people's minds, the X Pro 3 is not a videography camera. And so today, whenever I was looking online at different things I could get, I could always get some Olympus gear because it's amazing, and I could always get, some more Fuji lenses and XH1 and maybe the 23F2, and going through all this stuff and seeing how much money I would have to spend, I just decided to take a look into really, can my X Pro 3 be more than enough for what I need to do? So for me personally, I would be doing things like talking head and something like some real estate videography. Of course, on the photography side, I've got it down pat with the X Pro 3, but it just comes into, can I do cinematic or commercial videos, 30-second to 1-minute ads for something like a realtor? And so I pulled out my handy dandy tools that I would use for any shoot, and I got to it. And whenever I started putting everything together and working with the X Pro 3, I just realized how much we get used to nitpicking and how much we get used to basically making issues out of something that isn't an issue. For example, everyone wants to talk about how horrible it is to grade 8-bit versus 10-bit footage, and I just started thinking about it and realizing that, whenever I first learned to color grade, and I actually paid to do an online class and seminar to learn how to color grade in DaVinci Resolve with a man named Denver Riddle for quite some time, I was grading 8-bit footage. And the footage that I shot on personally and what I was using at work was 8-bit footage. And it never bothered me then because I was still expected to perform. Now I understand there's more leeway with 10-bit, but to be honest, with some of you color grading, would you even notice? Does some of you even use the video features in that length? Or do you use Eterna instead of F-Log? Do you use a nice cinematic profile that you have on your Sony versus using S-Log 3? I mean, exactly to what extent are you looking to complain about what you don't have compared to what you would actually use if you had it? The other thing I started thinking about is the fact that people make such a big deal about the X Pro 3's flip-down screen. So at the time of recording this, I was wondering how much it would hinder me, and it didn't. And that's all I'm going to say. It didn't hinder me. It's just a flip down screen. Just flip it down. There's literally nothing else to it. I don't understand why that's an issue. If you Google it, you still don't even understand why it's an issue. It's just an inconvenience of having to flip that screen down. The idea that it could have been a flip out screen, XYZ, yada, yada, yada. No one even knows. But we have to be angry at something, and we have to be upset at something. But it does do 4K 24 frames per second and 200 megabits per second. It does do 1080 60, which for me was more than enough than what I needed. I got some shots at 4K 24 frames and some at 1080 60, and I used those accordingly. And I used them in F-Log, and it was just fine. I understand that for audio, it only has a 2.5mm headphone jack, but that's just a $7 adapter away from you being able to use whatever you want it to use. And me personally, from all the times where I actually had to record long format things that were going on the internet or on television, I always recorded externally and used that audio and synced it up in post. I've never understood why people thought it's professional to be able to record straight into camera and trust the camera's horrible preamps. Even more, if you're worried about monitoring your audio and you have to record into there because you don't have an external recorder like the Zoom H-in1 or whatever in the world it's called, just get a USB-C to headphone dongle, which again is another $10. I understand it's the importance of I don't want to have to reach out and get something else, but I mean, what are you paying for? When you got the X Pro 3, did you buy it because you wanted to be a video camera, or did you buy it for photos primarily? And for me, I bought it for photos primarily, but I have the option of getting some extra cash doing video work, so let's see if it works out. And I think it did. The video I'm about to show you is more satire, but it's just an example clip that I can throw in there to show that I can be able to make something fancy and something that I hope that a couple of businesses think is funny along with my real work. And so I'll play that right now.
Are you looking to live in luxury, but your bank account just doesn't understand? Well, today is your lucky day. Because for only $500 a month, you can sleep on the right side of the couch in my living room. That is right. The whole right side, with pillows included, is yours for only $500 a month. Amenities include the amazingly soft pillows, a full kitchen, which of course we hope you use as little as possible, one full bathroom that you will share with every guest that we have, and of course access to our amazing never mind. On to the next thing. But you will have access to our amazing entertainment center, complete with 65-inch TV, access to Hulu with sports, Netflix, and of course our Crosley vinyl player. But actually, you won't be able to use any of it, because our dog also sleeps in that room, and he's our baby boy and we would like to not disrupt his rest. Don't let this offer pass you by. For only $500 a month, this soft couch, the right side, can be yours. Contact us today.
So all that was shot on the X Pro 3. It may not be the greatest thing, had limited light, kind of threw it together, had the 18f2 and the 35 1.4, and had to really work with that. But for what it is, and for the fact that the audio was good enough, I think people will actually like it, and I think it could gather a lot of attention. Now, my couch is not open for rent, but I just hope for some of you who are wondering, can I record video with the Fujifilm X Pro 3? I believe you can. I believe you can do it with anything you want to. You're not limited by your gear is limited by you. If you choose to buy another camera because you want your X Pro 3 to be a dedicated photos camera, well, then that means your X Pro 3 will never be the video camera that it could ever be because you're not putting the effort into it. You are limiting the video capabilities that were put into that X Pro 3 by not even trying. Will it be a great A cam? I think it could be. I think me setting up, doing talking head, getting my focus, nailing it down, switching over to manual so that way the focus sticks and not having to trust the face eye detection and moving and things like that, I think that would work for me perfectly fine. And at the same time, if I need to track people, I don't think Fujifilm is really what I'm be going for. But when it comes to making videos like this, something can be cinematic, something can be talking head, something can be advertisement, whatever, the X Pro 3 is more than good enough. And the X Pro 3 is a great camera all around, and Fujifilm didn't cripple it as much as they could have and as we've seen in the past, but for what they did take away, they've still left a lot. And so the main thing being this: don't get into the idea of consumerism and listening to all of these reviewers who are telling you it can't do this, it can't do that, it can't do that. Don't trust it for this unless you try it yourself. And maybe you don't want to buy the X Pro 3 at all and you clicked on this just for funsies. That's totally fine. Maybe you're trying to see if this is better than the Leica M10. That's totally fine too. But nonetheless, I say you can do plenty of video on the X Pro 3, and that was proof to it. So for future work with any kind of videography or anything, I'll be using the X Pro 3. Did I use a gimbal? No. Point. I don't like gimbals because they kind of mimic what sliders do anyway, so I just use a slider on a tripod. Perfectly fine. Do I wish I'd have gotten a longer slider? You better believe it. Maybe I'll invest in some wider lenses and things like that, but for what I have right now, the rig works, and the rig was able to make that, and I'm pretty sure I could do more with it if I had time. All that was made together in about 20 minutes. Then I threw it into Final Cut Pro and just threw on some elements that I had laying around for whenever I used to do real estate, a little bit more heavy, and yeah, I just made it into what it was. Voiceover was done on a Takstar SGC 598, recorded into a Zoom HN1. And this video is being recorded on DJI Osmo Pocket with audio going internally into it now, as well as splitting off with a splitter into this Zoom HN1. So yeah, you don't have to be limited by what gear you have. Your gear is always limited by you. So just keep that in mind. Use what you have. The X Pro 3, it gets a thumbs up from me in video.